Stephen, particularly to do with taxation, really.
Yeah, that's right. A break from the recent budgets we've heard where it was all about austerity and tax increases and spending cuts. There were, in fact, tax cuts announced in this speech, including a cut for low-paid workers. Those on the lowest incomes will now pay less in social charges to the government. For businesses, though, there was even more to celebrate. Manuel Valls, the new Prime Minister, announced a complete removal of payroll taxes for workers who are on the minimum wage. The cost of labour is also going to be reduced for the majority of workers through a reduction of those on salaries up to 3.5 times the minimum wage, which covers most workers here in France. In addition, something we weren't expecting at all, a reduction in the corporation tax rate. Manuel Valls announced that will come down gradually to 28% from its current level of over 35% by 2020.
I must confess I'm slightly confused. That's all going to cost money, isn't it? Money that the French government doesn't really have.
No, they certainly don't. The payroll tax cuts now, I can tell you that's part of the package that was announced in January by the French president. 30 billion euros in all of payroll tax cuts and credits, part of this so-called responsibility pact that he's made with businesses. But the corporation tax cut and those cuts for low-income workers, that'll add up to another 11 billion euros that wasn't budgeted for already. The French government already needed to find 50 billion euros in cuts by 2017. We're expecting to get full details of how that'll break down in 2 weeks' time, but the details that we got from Manuel Valls is that 19 billion will be sliced from the public sector worker budget, 10 billion from healthcare, and another 10 billion from local governments. There's another 11 billion. We still need to find out where they're going to find it, but it seems that Manuel Valls has made some inroads on that cutting already.
The key question going to stay, though, isn't it? Will this create employment? Because that's what the French government really wants.
Well, that is the idea. Unemployment in France has hit a record high. The number of people out of work, over 3.3 million. The unemployment rate, some 10.2%. But France has had structurally high unemployment for many years. It's not just because of taxation, which is all the measures that were announced. The OECD and the European Commissioner, among those, have called for France also to reform its labour market, in particular to make it easier to fire workers. But for many business leaders, Manuel Valls' announcements will only go so far in creating jobs, as Delano de Souza has been finding out.
French businesses are in desperate need of turning a page. François Hollande's Responsibility Pact promises to help companies improve competitivity. This component manufacturer for the nuclear industry says his production costs are too high.
There's a 30% difference between the Italians and Americans and Canadians. We have less chance of making mistakes compared with the others, given the disadvantages with regards to costs.
The company president closely watched the Prime Minister's speech. Manuel Valls said employer costs would drop to zero when hiring minimum wage workers until 2016. He's now done the math. The tax credit would help save his company 150,000 euros over 3 years.
The problem is the link which we have with banks. It's 6 million euros of credit with a 15,000 euro deposit. 150,000 euros is a bit of a joke next to all of this, but it's still 150,000 euros.
Manuel Valls wants businesses to take risks and hire more. He now faces an uphill battle convincing unions and employers that his plan will work.
Washington next. The International Monetary Fund has given us some upbeat news, isn't it?
Yeah, nice to get a bit of good news in the economy for a change. The IMF says the risk of another global downturn has been sharply reduced, mainly thanks to improved economic prospects in the United States and the United Kingdom, although it's revised down its growth forecast for Russia to 1.3%, partly due to tensions with the West over Ukraine. This is the breakdown of how those figures translate per region. The forecast for this year, still not great for the Eurozone, 1.2%, not terribly high, but emerging economies looking to do slightly better. Our correspondent Lorna Shaddick was at the IMF headquarters in Washington as those details were announced.
This was a broadly positive outlook from economists here at the IMF and the World Bank in Washington, D.C. for this year and next year. Growth for 2014 forecast at 3.6%, rising to 3.9% for 2015. And the US doing particularly well, its growth forecast at 2.8% for this year. A rather more mixed picture for the Eurozone there. Economists particularly concerned about its southern periphery countries, saying the recovery is yet to take hold fully there. They're especially concerned about the prospects for deflation. And also also concerns about Russia and Ukraine's economy, given the recent geopolitical turmoil. Russia's overall economic outlook downgraded as a result of that. And investors less inclined to invest in emerging markets as the recovery takes hold in advanced economies. They're keeping their money where it's safe. So a mixed picture overall. Good news for the US, some good news for the Eurozone, but emerging markets will have to adapt to the overall recovery accordingly.
Lorna Shattuck there in Washington. A quick look at the markets now. Things finally looking up on Wall Street after 3 days of losses. You can see things improve slightly on the markets there. The S&P 500 recovering some of those recent days. A more mixed picture in Asia, though. Shares in Tokyo down over 1% in early trading. That's the value as the yen rising, making life difficult for exporters there. Slightly more positive picture elsewhere, though. Hang Seng in Hong Kong up over 1%.
Stephen, thanks a lot. Stephen, back, of course, several times over the next 4 hours during Live from Paris. Now, coming up, the antics of a rather cute 4-year-old caught on camera for you. Today's web news, though, begins with reaction to the commemorations this week in Rwanda.
Rwanda commemorated the 1994 genocide on Monday, lighting a flame that will burn for 100 days, the time it took for the slaughter to unfold, during which some 800,000 people were killed. Web users from all over the world have been marking the 20th anniversary of these tragic events. Social networkers have been posting under the hashtags Rwanda 20 years or Kwibuka 20, which means remember, to pay tribute to victims and also share posters created for this solemn anniversary, highlighting the importance of remembrance and saying this type of atrocity can never happen again. Hundreds of web users from across the globe have taken part in the Upright Men project put together by visual artist Bruce Clark to commemorate the 20th anniversary of the genocide. They've posed with a sign reading, "I'm standing upright," to pay tribute to the thousands killed and show their solidarity with those who survived. Some survivors, however, remember very little or nothing at all about the genocide and now want to move on. Born in May 1994, Kobe Hatige Kamina is 20 years old, features in a piece on the website of French newspaper Le Monde. He, like many of his generation, feel it's time to close this dark chapter in the history of his country and look to the future. Election signs like these have been popping up across Toronto, Canada over the past week, depicting fictitious candidates for the upcoming October 27th municipal elections. They're promising just to smoke pot and not crack, or not get caught on camera when they urinate in public. A satirical campaign launched by the No Ford Nation movement, which openly mocks the mishaps and misdemeanours of the current Toronto Mayor Rob Ford, who's running for re-election. Rob Ford's unfortunate incidents have inspired 2 developers at Canada's Waterloo University who created the online site Rob Ford the Game. Our hero has to collect cannabis leaves and bottles of wine whilst avoiding police and journalists before the timer, represented as public opinion, runs out. Another online initiative targeting the Mayor of Toronto ahead of the municipal elections. This job offer, published on classified ads website Craigslist, looking for someone to play a tuba while following Rob Ford around for a day. The ad was posted by the Unethical Hack site, which has said on its Facebook page that the post has been filled and the tuba stunt will be happening soon. But these online attacks from critics don't seem to have impacted Rob Ford's confidence. In his recent YouTube videos, he claims he has strong public support and is convinced he'll be re-elected in October.
Everybody, but a lot of people that I meet, so they're going to support me.
This animated infographic will no doubt prove popular with Michael Jackson fans, and in particular, those looking to master his famous moonwalk. Put together by Jacob O'Neill and available on the site animagraphs.com, this graphic breaks down the steps to the legendary dance move created by the late King of Pop. This American dad has produced a video compilation of some of his 4-year-old daughter's livelier Saturday morning antics over a 3-month period. Dancing, music, noisy toys, not the most relaxing way to ease into the weekend. It's great fun, and you can check it out in its entirety on the Bottle Rocket YouTube channel.
Very cute. Something to cheer you up here on Fun Like That. That's all for me. More course coming up very, very shortly. All the latest news. Stay with us.